With Florida Senator Bill Nelson, Alabama Senator Richard Shelby. First to you, Senator Nelson, we are looking at this. It's not even an oil spill in the Gulf. It is an oil gusher in the Gulf, which keeps going and creating this huge spill that's coming toward the Gulf Coast and may eventually hit Florida. What I'm wondering is, and what I want to play for you first, talking about the damage that might be done and who might be responsible for it. This is an interview with our David Mattingly and the CEO of BP.
We are the responsible party. We are going to clean this up fully and completely, and we have said very clearly where there are legitimate claims for business interruption, then we will be good for them.
Legitimate claims for long-term, short-term?
Legitimate claims.
How many years are you prepared to pay fishermen for a bad catch?
I said legitimate claims.
So does that reassure you that whatever damage might come to Florida in terms of tourism or fishing will be covered by BP?
No. If they get this thing contained in the next few days, that's one thing, and maybe what he said would be true. But if this gusher continues for several months, it's going to cover up the Gulf Coast, and it's going to get down into the Loop Current, and that's going to take it down to the Florida Keys and up the east coast of Florida. And you're talking about massive economic loss to our tourism, our beaches, to our fisheries, very possibly disruption of our military testing and training, which is in the Gulf of Mexico. And so when I pressed the BP CEO on that statement that you just played, his response was above his limited liability of $75 million, which is the statute. He says, well, we'll have to work that out.
Well, Senator Shelby, there is a move in part from Senator Nelson to kind of raise the limit of liability that BP would have for this. It's now at $75 million. So is that doable in the law? That sounds to me like ex post facto, like changing the law in the middle of something happening.
Well, you raise that point, and that's a good one. On the other hand, BP is responsible for this. And responsibility covers everything, not just, a limit on it like the law says today. I'm sure there are ways to get around this, but a lot of this could have been prevented. I don't know where the regulators were on this. They certainly were asleep. Secondly, where's BP? Were they trying to do this on the cheap? This reminds me, in a sense, it's like a big truck on the Los Angeles freeway with no brakes. In other words, no safety. You know, if you don't have this backup safety, 1, 2, 3, whatever it is, sooner or later there could be a spill, a gusher, as you say, oil all over the Gulf. It's still pumping every day by the thousands of barrels. This is going to do irreparable damage to our marine life, our beaches, our way of life, and if we don't stop it, let's hope and pray that this dome works. If it doesn't work, I don't know where we go.
Well, Senator Shelby, let me ask you, I'm going to put this to both of you. First to Senator Shelby, since you brought it up. It always gets down to this, whether it's Wall Street or oil companies. Capitol Hill says, well, where were the regulators and why wasn't there a regulation? But you all are in charge of the regulators, aren't you? So can't we ask, where was the U.S. Senate? Where was the House of Representatives? Why didn't they see this coming?
Well, we're not in charge of the regulators. We have oversight of the regulators. The executive branch. The executive branch is in charge of the regulators.
But you could be, it doesn't take much to see that it's possible that oil could leak when you've got an oil rig in the ocean. Couldn't there have been hearings saying, well, exactly what sort of safety measures do you have? How do you know they're working? I mean, there weren't those kind of hearings. Now we've got 12 hearings coming up, but it's after the fact.
Candy, you make a good point. This should have been done long ago, every step, because we get about 30% of our oil now out of the Gulf. We have hundreds of drilling platforms now, and there will probably be more, but we should never sacrifice safety of our marine life, safety of our people, safety of everything to something on the cheap. This was probably done to save money, and look where we are today.
And Senator Nelson, the same question to you. Where was the U.S. Congress on this?
Well, you're exactly right, Candy. Big oil wants its way. They've been trying to bully their way to drill off the coast of Florida. Had the Florida legislature going to let them drill 3 miles off the coast of Florida in state waters. Big oil has had its way among the regulators. There's been a cozy relationship between the regulators and MMS. You remember all those stories back in the mid part of this past decade. Sex parties, all kinds of trips.
But shouldn't Congress have some responsibility? That's what I'm getting at.
You doggone right, Candy. You doggone right. That's exactly right. And that's what a number of us have been calling for. And we could never get to first base because big oil would flex its muscle and call in its votes, and we could never get anything done. And tragically, it's going to take this disastrous oil spill to finally clamp down on them.
Senator Shelby, last one to you. Has big oil bought its way into easy regulations?
Well, it's a good point that you make. I hope not, but big oil is there, and we should never, ever drill anywhere where there's not backup of safety many times, and this could have been prevented in the Gulf.
Alabama Senator Richard Shelby, Florida Senator Bill Nelson, I thank you both for being here. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Candy.